Gilles Villeneuve remains one of Formula One's great heroic legends, but he's too often distilled into a series of snapshots. The wheel-banging moments, the incredible car control, and the passionate approach. The weekend when F1 should have been racing at the circuit named in Villeneuve's honor. Mark Hughes argues that the late Canadian was so much more than a wild, untamed talent, and picks up the more nuanced and cerebral aspects of Villeneuve's game that could have made him a multiple world champion. Gilles Villeneuve, quite possibly the most exciting Formula One driver of all time. As with any star who captures the public imagination, there are myths and legends around him. But one of the biggest myths is that he could never have won the world championship, that he was too crazy, his talent too unfocused ever to have prevailed over a season. It's easy to see why such a view took hold, for much of his legend is built around the moments of sublime high drama within his brief 4.5 seasons F1 career. Three-wheeling at Zandvoort, the Imola 1980 crash, somersaulting of Ronnie Peterson at Fuji in his fourth race, and the wheel-banging duel with Rene Arnoux at Dijon in 1979. It is true that his driving was imbued with incredible passion, that it was his emotional reaction to the events of Imola 82 when he felt he'd been robbed on victory by the actions of Ferrari teammate Didier Pironi and not subsequently vindicated by his team, probably played a part in his fatal accident at Zolder. But the big loud picture of drama has bled out the detail which shows that actually there was within him all the sensitivity, feel, and judgment that would have allowed, under just slightly different circumstances, a career that might have rewritten the record books of the time. His talent went far deeper than just incredible car control and bravery. This underappreciated truth was indelibly written into all 6 of his Grand Prix victories. Montreal, 1978. A crucial component of his maiden Grand Prix victory, which came, admittedly, after Jean-Pierre Jarier in the much faster Lotus 79 tired from a big lead, was Villeneuve's tire choice. On a cold October day, he was the only one of 4 Michelin's drivers opting for its softest tire. There is no way that will last the distance, he was advised by the fireman. Even his teammate, the super-sensitive Carlos Reutemann, couldn't believe the soft would make it for 7 laps around the brand new circuit. Gilles knew better, but despite the drama of his racing style, his driving had great finesse. He didn't kill tires. He was invariably easier on his tires than his teammates. Different circumstances required different traits to him. On this day, Villeneuve assessed that the most suitable approach was going to keep his delicate rubber in shape in the early going when the fuel load was high, so as then to benefit from the tire's greater grip. In the early laps he ran in his great position of 4th, and it wasn't until the 19th lap that he began to make progress. After picking off Alan Jones Williams and Jody Schechter's Wolf, was running unchallenged in second, but forming no threat to Jarier. That's where he'd have finished had the Lotus half a minute in front of him held together, and it would have been a beautifully judged second place, 20 seconds clear of Reutemann in the other hard-tired Ferrari. Instead, a lick on the Lotus made Villeneuve's beautifully judged drive to victory. Kyalami, 1979. On the Ferrari 312 T4's debut, Villeneuve again won through the choice of a marginal Michelin compound everyone else believed would be too delicate. His race was complicated by heavy rain shower just 3 laps in, which brought out the red flags. He took the restart on wets, with teammate Schechter opting for dries on what was a quick drying track. Villeneuve pulled out the big lead, though he would later castigate himself for not pushing harder during this phase of the race, as it left him with a lot to do subsequently until the drying track meant his sweats overheated and forced him to pit on the 15th lap. Slow stop led to him rejoining half a minute behind Scheckter. It seemed Villeneuve had blown his chances by not choosing slicks for the restart, but at the stop, it insisted on the marginal soft tires. He had worked throughout the practices with only 63 laps remaining rather than 78, and with 15 laps worth of fuel burnt off. Villeneuve felt able to launch into full attack mode to utilize the greater grip, yet not kill them. No one else had reckoned them as anything other than qualifying tires, but he knew different. He made up that half a minute on Scheckter. When the latter locked up, Villeneuve was true to an immaculate victory, based upon an uncanny feel and deep thought. The dynamics behind the win there, as with Montreal 78, very different to the image of him. Long Beach 1979. He won this in dominant fashion for pole, beating Scheckter by half a minute, but again, he did it with a tire choice. The Michelin engineers advised against, but probably with less conviction now, as they'd seen firsthand what his delicate feel could conjure. Watkins Glen's 1979. After engaging the superior Williams F007 of Alan Jones in battle, it looked like Villeneuve's win was secure when his rival dropped out. But Villeneuve's engine was registering almost no oil pressure, and there were still 20 laps to go. After noticing it was the left-handers that were causing the pressure to dive, he coasted through them for the rest of the distance, allowing those cars he had lapped to unlap themselves. Nursing the car like this, coasted across the line to his third win of the season. Monaco, 1981. The gripless truck of a Ferrari shouldn't even have been within sniffing distance of Nelson Piquet's underweight Brabham, let alone losing pole to it only by a few hundredths of a second. The next fastest turbocharged car was Alain Prost, Renault, down in ninth, over 1 second slower. The other Ferrari of Pironi was on the penultimate row, but that out-of-this-world qualifying lap had put Villeneuve wildly out of position for the race, with a much heavier turbocharged fuel load than the naturally aspirated cars around him. So, Villeneuve drove accordingly, didn't push things in the early laps, but held his ground as best could, as Piquet sprinted away. After a while, Jones and his much more nimble Williams wanted past. Rather than fight it out before he was ready, Villeneuve used his brain. He said, "He gave me about the gap of Williams plus about 2 millimeters to Mirabeau, showing me it was there if I wanted it," recalled Jones. "I would never have got that thing to the finish with any brakes if he tried to fight me. I understood exactly what he was doing. He was smart." Jones set the chase for Piquet, caught him, pressured him into an accident, but then later suffered fuel starvation, allowing Villeneuve to power past to an unlikely victory built upon his scintillating qualifying lap, but also upon a calculating brain. Jarama 1981. It was 18 laps when Jones spun out of the lead, and there were 66 to go. Villeneuve took over the front, but he had a posse of 4 faster cars on his tail. In a tight queue, the Ferrari had the power not to be vulnerable to the straights, but had literally around 1/4 of their downforce, according to Harvey Postlethwaite, who joined as designer that year. One locked wheel, one missing apex, the ever-turning track, that have all been through. He had to drive a race of perfection for 66 laps to make this work. Not an attacking drive, but a smart defensive one with zero room for the smallest error. So that's what he did. Sadly, that's all the record book says. 6 victories for the greatest driver of his day, one of the greatest of any days. But in every one of those 6 can be seen the qualities that would have been the bedrock to fabulous success had his career played out properly. There were the many might-have-beens had it not run out of fuel at Zolder, and running through it, those 4 points would have won him the championship. Despite operating as a number 2, if Scheckter hadn't collided with Clay Regazzoni there first lap, and if the Williams into Villeneuve's path, Villeneuve wouldn't even have needed to have been making a charging recovery from a pit stop, and would quite conceivably have won the race at a fuel-efficient center. Had Ferrari not deliberately taken an inch to change Villeneuve's engine in qualifying at Monaco, had Piquet not gone in the way at the chicane in Villeneuve's one proper late qualifying run, with a lap that was already set to be pole by a full 1 second, then he'd surely have dominated Monaco too, had he not got the puncture at Zandvoort, the prelude to the three-wheeling antics. So to suggest he couldn't have won a championship is nonsense. Just normal luck. Could have won it as number 2 in 79. He would surely have won it in 82 with what subsequently became the base car, the 80 and 81 seasons being write-offs with hopelessly uncompetitive Ferraris. His disillusionment with Ferrari after events of Imola had led him to resolve he was not staying there beyond that year. He had a long-standing offer on the table from Ron Dennis to join McLaren. If he'd accepted it, he'd have been driving the dominant McLaren tags of 1984 and 85. So quite conceivably, another 2 titles there. The breadth and depth of his ability was stunning. He called upon those qualities that backed up his unbelievable raw speed, only when the discipline of the situation demanded it. Otherwise, he threw caution to the wind largely as a consequence of the no-help machinery he'd been given. Occasionally, it didn't work, but when it did, he achieved miracles.